It's coming. Oh no, it says we're live. Okay,
Oh,
the
we're
internet's
live.
just slower. Okay, hi everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
So yes, I am Sage,
I'm Isaiah.
and welcome to After Church Tea Time on Politics. I was kind of thinking it'd be cool to introduce ourselves and like say what country we're from, because like that influences our political backgrounds a lot, you know. So I'm from America or the USA.
Same.
So yeah, there we go.
I am Fabian and I am German.
I'm Sylvia and I'm from Romania, Eastern Europe.
I'm Susie and I am also from the United States.
Yeah, so you know, today we're just talking about this message. I think the most inspiring thing about this sermon for me was how Jeff and Shalia offered this beautiful divine vision of politics. Like, I'm not going to lie, like, oh man, I really wanted harmony in politics, like my whole life. Like, I would watch politics a lot when I was a kid on the news. Like, my mom would watch the news all the time, and I would watch, and I'd be like, I really just don't want these people to always just be fighting and all this bitterness, you know? I mean, sometimes it's kind of entertaining. And like with Donald Trump, especially, I think it's the peak of entertainment in politics. Although sometimes you have to have a dark sense of humor. But I just want harmony in politics. And Jeff and Shalia gave that beautiful vision. And, you know, I had this kind of funny, but also mainly beautiful vision at the end of their sermon of like, starting Congress off with like a prayer and like the singing bowl and the ohms. And I just felt that would be really beautiful, you know, and I would love to see the day, and we will, when like in a political group like Congress or something in the US, like everybody is there so they can like fully process things and get to the heart of it and come to the divine truth and the agreement. And I feel like it's way closer than we might think. Like, this may seem kind of like, well, that never happens. Like, that's kind of weird. But like, I swear anything's possible with this work, you know? Like, my political views have changed a lot, and they've become much less defined because I'm just like, well, I don't know, I question things now. Thanks to this work, and it just feels so much more balanced for me. So, because I used to be like really angry and radical because I was like, we need revolution, we need to overthrow the oligarchs, and we need like fucking, oh, sorry. Well, I guess I can say that. As passion, we need socialism or maybe communism, you know, like I was that kind of person. And part of it was out of a desire for justice and love of all people. But part of it was kind of a sense of like disempowerment, you know? And this, Jeff and Shalia showed me that politics don't have to be bitter and full of conflict and disempowerment. So I'm really grateful to them for that. And especially for being a representative of the transgender community.
Mm-hmm.
Because that means that we don't have to act from a place of feeling disempowered. We can empower ourselves within. And, you know, there's a lot of room for that in America. It's kind of oppressive sometimes to trans people, depending on where you are. And we're going to change that with the help of the teachings and healing people's trauma and helping them ascend, you know, so they can have a sense of personal power. So anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love Jeff put it so simply, like it's just a conversation. It's just a conversation.
Yeah.
Dissect that conversation, take out every piece of it and look at it.
Yeah.
And it's so peaceful to view it that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So that's me. That's my soapbox. And yeah.
I love it. I kind of I relate to what you're saying because I feel like I got turned off of politics at some point not too long ago just because I was similarly tired of like bitterness, right? And anger and also feeling like a lot of it was like, I don't know, just like entertainment to some people in a way. And And I feel like I kind of turned away from the conversation, which, like, as Jeff and Shalia indicated, isn't like super productive. If you have a feeling, like, voice it, have a conversation, be open, get to the heart of it. And as they gave their sermon to us, I realized I actually do really like politics. Like, I love conversations, I do like to dissect things, and I do like to understand things and processes and people and like find harmony there. um, there's like a strong drive in me for that, which is surprising because that would mean I like politics, which is something that I have told people, like, I'm not becoming a politician, like, that's not happening. um, but yeah, it was just nice to feel like my love for conversation rejuvenated.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. And politics, and there are a lot of debates on television and stuff, are always about, or have been about, who is right, and it's this like oftentimes superficial topic in the middle of the discussion, and people are talking about, well, here's pros, here's cons about this. And this is all good, right? This is what Jeff and Shalia in this amazing sermon were also hinting at, is that, well, let's come together and talk about my perspective. Let's talk about your awareness and my awareness and see how we can align these things. And in my experience so far, politics and political discussions are lacking this thing where both parties come to an agreement or really want to hear the other party out and understand them and understand their viewpoint. It's more about like, well, how can I defend my awareness at all costs and my perspective and win against this other voice, rather than being relaxed about and non-attached about my own awareness, allowing myself to learn more about the truth with this other person or with this other voice in the room,
Yeah, I love this topic of harmony in politics, and that it can be only a constructive conversation. And I would like to share a little bit of my background in politics. I studied diplomacy for some time. I guess I was also influenced by my father, who was a state secretary for some years. So I've been in this environment, and I was familiar with the political thought and environments. And during this study course in diplomacy, I met one of the most respectful groups of people I've ever met that far, because even if on TV and in mainstream politicians are considered rude or loud, in reality it's not really like that. I've met many respectful people who are very empathetic, and socially and on a personal level too. And many of them are very much grounded in spirituality, and I found that very interesting. But still, I've chosen to become a spiritual coach. But anyway, I found many common bridges with politicians and diplomats, and they're merely, most of them or many of them, people who are very much aware of global affairs, cross-cultural attitudes, and many of them are oriented towards equality, ideally. And in order to be in politics, you have to have a certain degree of mental strength and to have this self-confidence to speak out your ideas and your opinions. So you become the ultimate influencer of the world. So it's it's really a position of mental strength. And there is an author in anthropology, I forgot who, who makes this beautiful analogy that the circulatory system of the state is religion. The digestive system is economy, and the nervous system, the mind, is politics. So it's it relates to the mind and to thought, and the more disciplined your mind is, the better politician you can become, but it's a prerequisite. So you can't really even vibe into politics if you don't have a specific focus on your mind and your thoughts. So I really resonate with that. Yeah, I think somebody wanted to say something.
We just thought that was cool. You know what you said. I think for a lot of people, like for me, like government officials are a bit like far off. You know, like we don't like interact with them on the day to day. But I appreciate what you said about how, you know, I mean, the media maybe shows the most sensational things for the drama and the views, but you know, you point out that these are just a lot of people who have really good intentions and are respectful, you know, and do their best, you know. I mean, I think they're all doing their best, but you know what I mean? Like, it's not all just a bunch of people going in like, being like, oh, I'm gonna like get in a fist fight. You know what I mean? So I appreciate that perspective, you know. Yeah, from someone closer to government.
Yeah, and in some countries still the church holds almost a political position because they have a great influence over the state decisions and what messages are promoted to the population. So we as a church, we are kind of vibing into politics somehow, because we have an important word to say to people. And the bigger the church gets, the closer it gets also to the politicians themselves. And I found that interesting, that we're like symbolically some politicians of love.
I love that.
Yeah. I love what Shalia said too. I love what you said, Sylvia, about how, you know, the circulatory, like the heart and blood system is like religion of the community, and it connects to what Shalia said about how politics is always spiritual, because it's people's values and beliefs. People's beliefs about themselves and humanity are spiritual. Like, you know, I don't know, like the US was founded on the principle that, you know, all people are equal, although there was some discord with that, you know, between like men and women and Black people and white people in the minds of the founders, which was worked out. But the changes are what I like about, you know, unionism is that it's saying, you know, the change begins within with the people's inner choice. And it had to. Like women in the US and everywhere had to make an internal choice to be like, I am done with not having a political voice. You know, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people had to start off by saying, I will not accept abuse anymore. You know, I will not accept to be harassed and violated by the state that's supposed to protect me, you know, in the late 1960s and in the US. And like all these things, you know, just led to so much social change, but it had to start within them, you know, because before they felt like they had to take it, kind of. But, you know, then they realized, you know what, I don't, and I'm willing to pay whatever price I need to, you know, transcend this. And I really like that.
Yeah, sounds great. And I also remember what Jeff and Shalia said during the sermon, that yeah, it's actually, you are the master, the co-creator of your reality with God. So if you don't fit with a certain state, with a certain country and its politics, you can transcend it. I have several LGBTQ friends who've moved from Romania because the country's vibration doesn't exactly support yet this community to enough high degree for them to feel good. So they move to different countries where they feel more welcome with their identity. And yeah, these people are happy now, and they are perfectly aligned with their values and the state they're in. And I also know people who remained here in the same situation who are not so happy, and other ones who try to change the local, the national climate by speaking up. So there are several ways you can go about this, and yeah, as long as you follow your heart and God, then you're in the right place.
Yeah, that was nice. That kind of answers Pooja's question too, because, she was basically asking how to change perspective for politicians in a positive way. And that's a very good question. And I felt like you said that basically like, well, you could, you could move. I don't know if that might change something because people will see that everyone's leaving. Or if people
Sorry,
leave,
that was funny.
it's funny.
Like,
everyone-
oh, they're gone. Like, maybe they don't like it here.
Yeah, or speaking up, or but Jeff and Shalia were saying just make the choice in your heart, and what you think, just alone what you think really matters. And I really do resonate with that.
I also love what Shalia said. It was so empowering, and she was speaking to just like just how sharing yourself, and especially coming from a place of peace and love, that's the influence that can make all the difference and the change that needs to happen. Yeah, because when you share love, as we all know, like it spreads, and then that loving perspective can then be the first perspective instead of being pushed aside.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people think that, I don't have a voice in politics. It's this people high up there in their limousines and in their huge castles, and always guarded and protected, can't really reach them. And I understand why people have this kind of view, but having watched this Sunday service, I really feel much more empowered, and it feels so healing in my heart to know that, I don't have to like force myself into the White House and talk to Mr. Trump. No, it's about, I have an awareness in my heart, my unique perspective, and I see reality in a way, right? And if I see reality in a way that is really aligned with truth, then having this kind of vision and holding that kind of vision in my heart is powerful onto itself. And that's all that is required, even though I can be invited to share that with friends or, like on a broader scale. But all that is required is to really allow myself to feel what I'm feeling. And, this is going to change everything.
Yeah, I feel like, full disclaimer, I haven't like read deeply up on this Supreme Court ruling. So if anyone has any other insight, please let me know. But I feel like a really good example of that is in the US, we have, we vote, right? And then we have each state in the US has an electoral college that looks at what the people voted and then puts in votes. And then that's how our president is decided, right? But I think not in all states, like they didn't have to go with the popular vote, which really like upset like a lot of the population, right? And has been a point that many people have brought up. And recently the Supreme Court ruled that like you do have to go with the popular vote. The Electoral College just have to vote with a state's popular vote, which hopefully, if I understand that correctly, gives more power to the popular vote and the people. But I feel like that's a really good example of like Americans, people in the United States deciding that they want their voice to be heard, and they want it to determine directly like who's in power, right? and then reality shifting to match that. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I also think it's very nice that we actually decide by our choice in which country we are born and with which kind of political regime we resonate. And when I was 3 years old, that's when the communist regime fell in Romania. So I guess as a child, I made the right choice. I wanted
Wow.
take away your dominance, please. And yeah, my vibration as a child and then as a teenager was pretty much marked by this the revolutionary vibes, and that's actually the vibe of change, of positive change. And I really enjoyed growing up in a post-communist country that way, because it really fits my personality. I'm always revolutionizing everything, and that's also relates to ascension, right? We do inner work and we transcend the illusion of darkness and we rise higher and higher. And yeah, politics is part of ascension, right? Because politics is also made of by people and their thoughts. And I think we can also choose to get involved more. And a good step is by being part of this church and supporting the Church of Union, because harmonious unions and in general true love has a great influence on thought. True love heals the mind. You cannot have like a chaotic mind and experience heaven on earth, right? So I'm sure that the influence of the church, of our church, will be more and more perceived and seen, because it does a whole lot of good to the mind and to politics. And one cannot say no to love, to true love. Everybody wants that. And as I said at the beginning, politicians are not evil. I know I have one in my family, and he's one of the nicest people I know.
Yeah, and I feel like I really feel like the link with like love and politics is that like ultimately I think the divine purpose of this conversation that is politics is truth, right? And that truth is like the higher vision Jeff talked about at the beginning of the sermon, right? And when you're aligned with love, and like you said, your mind is disciplined and is in harmonious union with love, then it like gravitates towards truth and it seeks out truth. And just imagine a society transformed because like we want truth, right, more than we want to be correct.
Yeah. That is a really cool way of seeing it. Yeah, that's awesome. So like basically, yeah, so as more and more people align to this work and choose their harmonious union, yeah, they'll want to, choose truth and find truth and peace and harmony and all that. That makes a lot of sense, yeah. And yeah, it's a good point. And I also have examples too of how, the inner work really makes a difference, because in different states in the US, I feel like most of the time there's the US states might not have like explicit civil rights protections, and that's changing for like LGBT people or like trans people. And sometimes it's like a bit of an issue in some places for like a transgender person to use the bathroom that they want to use, and but I've had some upsets about that throughout my journey, basically. But ever since that I came out for the second and last time, as myself as a woman, I have never had one issue with like using the women's restroom, even when I was like very just starting out immediately in my transition journey, because Jeff and Shalia showed me how to purify my consciousness of that attack and of that discrimination within myself. I've never experienced it. And because of that, I like never. So I know what it's like to experience heaven there, just to be able to be just accepted and people not to care. And I know it depends on my inner work because, you know, furthermore, like where I live is, I think everywhere's kind of a mixed bag, but, you know, Phoenix is a mixed bag politically. Like there's some more liberal people, but there's some more conservative people, and especially out where I live. And it's just like, it doesn't matter. The inner work changes your experience. And so I feel like that normalizes it for consciousness, like that normal people are seeing me, for example, you know, as like a trans woman being out in society and, you know, happy and content and not being harassed because I don't manifest that because of how I love myself through those feelings. So I feel like it just changes the consciousness and people are like, oh, like that's fine. Like, you know, kind of like how, you know, gay rights became more of a thing because gay people shared themselves more and they were just like, hey, like we're people, you know, we're proud to be who we are, you know, we have a good time just like you know, maybe more. No, just kidding. And, you know, I feel like it was just normalized, like it's like exposure therapy for the populace. Like they're like, oh, like gay people, okay. And then gay marriage was legalized, you know, in I think 2008 or something.
Mhm.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, I just remembered something. I remember a very famous YouTuber in Romania who is transgender, and she's now regularly invited to national television because she made her channel so popular. So now she actually has something to say on the topic, and people are respecting her because of her confidence of speaking out her truth and educating the population. So she started up with a small YouTube channel and now she's on TV. So that's also a way to go about this, and do not underestimate the power of YouTube.
Amen.
Definitely.
Mhm.
I feel like everything you guys just said answers Lisi's question here. Lisi said, can you go deeper on when Jeff and Shalia talked about doing inner work to resolve the external, even governments? How does this change the perspective on how we take responsibility?
Yeah. So that feels complete, but I was also really fascinated by Abir's comment. I don't know if you guys see it, but Abir was saying that she grew up in a monarchy, like an absolute monarchy, I think. It was, I think she grew up in Oman. I've heard her talk about this before, but it's like, I think it's called like the Sultanate of Oman, and there's like a sultan, and he's like the absolute monarch. And I don't know, that kind of is interesting. She said the people felt very loved by the monarch. And I choose to be open to that. You know, I think a little skepticism is in me from like all of the, you know, my upbringing in America. But I don't know. Although I remember like Plato, you know, a former colleague of one of my friends, was saying that the final stage of government, the ultimate stage of government, is that of a philosopher king, who's like, they're a king, but they rule with wisdom. So they're not like some tyrant who's saying like, you know, I'm going to kill you because you disagree with me, you know, and I feel like that's what people really fear. Like someone is like a really powerful, a ruler with like unchecked power, then it's going to turn into abuse. But if the ruler, the only unchecked power is love, and all of the monarchs, all the evil dictator people fall with time. So I just wanted to point that out and see where that went, you know, because I thought that was interesting, like what Abir said, you know, the monarchy.
Yeah.
I did.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. You're fine.
Yeah. Okay. So something that Jeff and Shalia shared is that, you know, truth has unlimited power, and there's also this other saying coming to mind that an idea whose like time has come cannot be stopped. And we have experiences in the past where like, okay, actually being gay is divine. And then, you know, there's equality between black and white people and between men and women. And now there's this other idea of twin flame harmonious union, you know, and that is also what Jeff and Shalia shared, is that this is an idea that cannot be stopped, and this is in this way quite new to the planet, that we have like such a powerful idea. That's like twin flame harmonious union and unionism in general.
Yeah, and speaking about unionism and inner work, so if we want to go deeper on how inner work helps political regime we're in currently, each one of us, well, I think Nelson Mandela said that be the power you want to see in the world, or something of that sort. So if you are powerful on the inside, then you will get always to the right places and to the right political situations, including, or you will be guided to step up and to make that change yourself, because God calls you to do it personally or through a group. And yeah, it's for to those of us who are called to be involved into politics because this is our life purpose, maybe, then it's a direct involvement. But let's say to somebody who is not called to be in politics, then that person still has a complete power over their political destiny, because every upset with the outside is an upset that is actually inside mirrored to the outside. And I personally met many people who really hate politics and politicians, and many of them are watching compulsively politics and news all the time, and they're very much emotionally involved, and they feel like politics can rule their lives in a way that becomes extremely important to them. And many times they're angry because they project God onto politics, and they feel that God is misleading them, or not giving them what they want, or playing games with them. But it's actually their own upsets with God and themselves. And then inner work, of course, is required. And then perhaps that codependency with politics is also being healed, and those people are then free to realize that their ultimate state is God. Their ultimate whatever, their ultimate everything is God. So nothing on the outside has the power to lead their destiny. So everything is really simplified or narrowed down to inner work and to everyone's unique relationship to God and love.
As you were talking, like the things you were saying reminded me of this song by Michael Jackson called Man in the Mirror. And I love to listen to that song when I'm like really upset about like the world or something. Because the whole point of the song is like, you know, if you want to make the world a better place, you got to look in the mirror and change your ways. Right. So it's basically, it's a great song. I feel like it fits the theme of this discussion is what I'm getting at. But but in regards to like inner work and changing our political landscapes in our countries, right? I feel like something I've been doing recently is, rather than mirroring what I see in my political reality, I just kind of like, I'm like angry and I like rant about it, and I'm like, look at what happened today, like, you know, it's my phone, and I'm like, this isn't okay. But yeah, it's very peaceful and empowering to see that upset is just simply an upset within myself, and nothing more. And it's just wonderful that you can change that. Look at the man in the mirror.
I was thinking of Heal the World. Heal the world.
Heal the-
Make it a better place.
So many good songs.
Maybe one day we have like a after church party as well, you know?
Oh, that's funny.
Sing along.
Yeah.
Until then, this is a party.
Oh yeah, this is the party. Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah, that reminds me of that sermon. I think it was a sermon where Jeff and Shalia mentioned that next to being a spiritual teacher, being a musician or producing, creating music is like one of the closest occupations that bring you closer to God.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's why we're very much inclined to sing now.
Yeah, I did something we haven't touched on yet that really stood out to me in the sermon was how Jeff and Shalia pointed out that like the fear in politics and the fear of politics is really just like a fear of your brother, and not being safe with them. And for me that really hit home because I felt that that fear and that discomfort. And I just want to dig into that a little bit more because I think that drives a lot of discord between us, is not trusting the other side or the other party or whoever is the minority or whatever.
I even wrote that one down. That was so good and so healing. I think if I got it correctly, they said you can feel safe because your life rests in your brother's arms. And then they shared that your brother is divine.
Mm-hmm.
So beautiful. Yeah, what is really standing out to me in that is that, we are all one. And in truth, there's only love, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everything your brother can do is to love you.
Yeah.
And this is because, this is your brother in God. It is God's child, just as you are. And yeah, you have one vision, one purpose together. And so this seemingly different point of view or this apparent opposition is not an opposition at all. It's just a technique to arrive at a deeper truth together. And it's like where there's point of view A and point of view B, and when we exchange these and harmonize these, we arrive at a deeper truth than before. So there's only ever teamwork going on. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. I feel like the process of disagreement in order to reach harmony, to find that harmony there is really divine, but there's like you're saying, like a perception that process can like hurt you, or it's attack in some way, but it's really healthy.
Just want to share a couple comments that we have here.
Mm-hmm.
So from Ogana, I hope I'm saying your name right. She said, I live in Saudi Arabia and it's also a monarch and honestly appreciate the royal family. I worked with them personally and my experience was that they helped me and empowered me to become a confident woman. And then Chrissy said, I really loved Jeff and Shalia noting their choice is fluid and doesn't sway one way or the other regarding a specific party.
Mhm.
I've always felt this way. It's about solving our issues. I too share values with both parties, and it's about aligning with the best candidate for the country.
Mhm. Yeah, I like that mentality
Mm-hmm.
because it brings a lot of relief, because yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think everybody knows, like deep down, and I feel that it just won't work long term, like just having like two camps that don't really want to work together. I think that's what like the USA is like working through.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know about other countries, but I would be curious. But yeah, it's just like that won't work forever. But people like with Chrissy's like the same mentality as what Chrissy shared are the kind of people who like their consciousness and their choices are responsible for us having a functioning government. So I appreciate that, and like to have more improvement there, So
Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of church and politics and apparent opposites, I was a bit amused about how God orchestrated for me to become both the regional TFU manager for Romania and both Hungary, because historically these are nations that are not really on the same political side, because Hungary lost a portion of their land to Romania, so there's always this intercultural, inter-ethnic fight, and I feel that by God putting me in this position, I became an ambassador of love for these two nationalities, and yeah, it really made me aware now that love does have great power, because in the face of true love and harmonious twin flame union, these minor political clashes and problems, interethnic clashes, are simply dissolved because one realizes the universality of love, and that those historic conflicts were basically only choices of separating from God's love and abundance, and yeah, there is no really true ownership of that land, and in truth, land cannot be lost, love cannot be lost, God cannot be lost. So that's a really great lesson for me, being in both of these ethnicities.
That's amazing.
That's really interesting. Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I kind of feel that with the United States, because like, well, or Mexico, because like where I live now used to be Mexico, and all the western portion of the US used to be Mexico. And there were all of these people and they had an established culture. And even though I feel like the people who were already there when the US like claimed that land, like really influenced the US, and it just transformed and became something new, and I think that that's cool, and there are the historical issues of like the violence and domination, but I really feel like there was just a transformation there, and yeah, so America like couldn't have stayed the same, by doing that, like by taking or by acquiring that territory. Like I feel like they didn't, it was a transformation, and I feel like it was something divine ultimately, even though there was a lot of like other stuff going on, because it was like violent, and yeah, kind of shady how that went down, but still, I don't know. I'm grateful for the place I live in now. So, yeah.
Yeah, and this is what also politics is about, to like differentiate what is good from what isn't good. For example, like how America or the US came to be, there was definitely like very beautiful things, and maybe also not so beautiful things like violence. But the more beautiful things would probably be like, let's be pioneers and have new land, and we have this dream, And yeah, in conjunction, or like in the sermon, Jeff Schulia talked about the Second World War and Germany's role in that, right? Where Germany is portrayed often as this evil country, and it's not that black and white in spiritual truth, like there were good and very bad things, but it's not just the bad thing, and this is what politics can be right now and in the future, to be really differentiating what is good and what isn't good, so that we can be clear and only keep the good and divine things.
Yeah, I was curious to, or I thought about when Jeff and Shali were talking about like atonement and stuff. I thought that was interesting because like how like, you know, white America is like atoning for all of the things of the past, you know, and, you know, the abuses of people of color, you know, and I just thought that was really interesting. And I agree. And it's like, it's cool to observe and to be in. And also, you know, Germany too would have its process too, right? Like the German things and that they have, the things that they have to process. And I don't know. I thought of you, Fabian. I was like curious because Shalia was talking about like German families working through kind of like, you know, like generational karma or depending on their family or their history or whatever. And I don't know, that I was just like, I wonder what that is like, you know, because, you know, I really don't know, like, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I was like, oh my God, generational curses in German families. Oh no, you know. But then the second thought was, well, actually, I have been growing up with that, so it's normal to me. And then I was thinking beyond that, well, can I actually identify that energy in my family or upbringing? And I think, yeah, there's this energy that we are releasing and working through. And well, it's atoning, right? And atoning is not a bad thing. It's just a correction or like, you know, a paying off debt, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it's just safe to move through this process. I don't have a comparison right now, so I don't know how it is to live, you know, from another point of view, but I don't think this is like restricting me in any way.
Yeah, it's interesting just about when you opened Sage this topic. I was collecting my thoughts on this, on how the collective is still healing and purging the abuse that the generation that my parents lived in got from the communist regime, where if you were not part of some position of power in politics or in some government institution, you were risking to lose your freedom or to lose your possessions or even get killed in certain situations. So I get it why the collective in my country is a little bit mistrusting of institution and administrations because they kind of expect betrayal. And even if I am abused, and even if I didn't really live in those times, just for a short time, for 3 years, when I was 3 years old, as I mentioned, the revolution broke out. Still, there is a backlog of inner work doing as a collective. And since I chose to keep on being in this country, I feel it's not a duty, but it affects me, right? Since I vibe in this environment. And yeah, I realized that I did have a lot of betrayal wounds to heal, and I'm still working on it. And it's interesting to think of each country that you're in, that what could be possibly the core wound of the collective, and work on it, do the mirror exercise for it.
That's a really interesting concept to me, of like looking at your country and considering what may be the core wound or wounds of the collective. So I've spoken to people about this before, where I feel like I'd be interested if anyone wants to comment, or if Isaiah and Sage have any ideas. But sometimes I feel like freedom might actually be a core wound in America, because I feel like a lot of our like discord and drive is to like make sure people feel free. And we were a country kind of founded by people who were trying to be free of a certain regime, to practice their religions, you know, free to not be overly taxed. And so like I've wondered like how we carry that in our consciousness and what's still there, and how does that drive a lot of our ideals for both parties and what we're pushing for.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Mhm.
Because Americans were, because at the core there was, I feel like at the core in the country's founding there was the choice of like, you know, freedom.
Mhm.
And but then people at the time, we've just been, and we're still working through like this feeling of like, you know, like not knowing what freedom is, you know, like people felt like their freedom depended on slavery, or like somebody feeling like my good self-image depends on a negative view of other people or something like that, or like my life isn't one with these other people's, there's separation, and that's not true. You know, like we are all one, and it's safe to have a dialogue and understand each other more so that we can just like heal together. And yeah, white America's healing a lot of, and has been healing a lot of like collective arrogance, you know, of feeling like, well, either like there's no problem, or like I understand it, you know, but that kind of shit. But it's like, but you know, it requires a little bit more diving deep and releasing preconceived notions and stuff, and knowing that, you know, the unknown can't hurt you because we're all just one, and your brother is divine, you know, and so are you, you know. So just releasing that guilt too, you know, and because that will help us achieve more harmony. I know it's helped me achieve more harmony, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, I remember I've lived in the States. I was an exchange student in high school, and definitely I could sense some of this arrogance in a way, because people would often ask me if I have something to eat in Romania, if I ever ate pizza or or stuff like that. And I was shocked because yeah, there's not such a big difference from Europe
Yeah.
to America. And yeah.
I know what you mean.
I'm laughing because like I can picture so easily like what you're describing. So.
But there's definitely yeah, in the vibration of the States, something unique that I've never experienced in other countries. This vibration of abundance and prosperity to a level of security and relaxation that I haven't experienced in other countries, and I've visited many countries. So I say something about the blog, but I also say something nice.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so funny. But like speaking about the block is nice too, because it's like, you know, compassionate to like understand that and dig through it. But I think, were you saying something, Sage? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
What was I saying? Oh, I'm just saying, like, a lot of American children grow up and they just don't know about other countries at all. They just don't.
Yeah.
They just don't know. It's the culture, but that is changing with the internet. That's all I wanted to say. So there's innocence in that question, but I know it's also very like, it's like, okay, come on, like, anyway, they're right next to Italy, almost. No, just kidding. Anyway, but yeah, go on, Susie.
Just one sentence, please. Romania actually has super fast internet connection. Like almost no one can keep up to their internet speed.
Really?
It's true.
That's interesting.
Want good internet? Come here. Come to Romania. We have internet.
See, like everyone in America, people be assuming like we have the best everything. No, I didn't even know that. See, we can learn from other countries. They all have something great.
Yeah.
And there is this inside joke in Romania that the second spoken language in Microsoft is Romanian. because I don't know, there is this myth that Romanians are very intelligent and they're just infiltrate in other countries and get in high positions in institutions.
That's funny.
That's funny. I kind of like that. I feel like that'd be a fun book, like a fantasy novel.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
Since
Yeah,
we're
but
talking,
yeah, you say it. It was more.
yeah, I have an idea coming up since we were talking about Microsoft, and it's this idea that I recently heard a speech from Bill Gates, talking about really clearing out the ecological imprint of his businesses. And this is something that was discussed in the sermon as well, that there's this discussion between business people and science, about the global warming truth. And so business people around the world are waking up and also becoming more conscious about the environment. And Bill Gates is probably one of these people. And in that interview, he said that, he is making sure that with his new awareness about global warming and stuff, that Microsoft and all these companies have no trace in the economy, in the ecological system, in nature, so that it has a positive impact, but definitely not a negative impact. So he's ensuring that all of his businesses are basically good for nature.
Yeah, and I feel like that's also just like another like really cool example of how the consciousness of people is creating change in our like given businesses aren't politics per se, like at least in the United States, like corporations and politics are very like closely woven with each other. But there's like a growing consciousness of people who value the earth and the environment and don't necessarily want to see the dark perils of climate change, if you will. And that's a cool reflection to see a company as big as that, like make that choice, right?
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was really, it's been really just really cool. And I'm grateful for you all for sharing the different perspectives, Yeah, I learned a lot and just have just a lot to process. And I feel like it really enriched the message, from the sermon. And yeah, if anyone has any other like points they want to say, because let's, I'd like to hear that on our discussion. But other than that, I feel like we're reaching a completion with that. And yeah.
Feels pretty good to me as well. I just want to say thank you for this nice opportunity to be here with you and for this awesome Sunday service, including Jeff and Shalia's sermon as well. It's also very healing for everyone, and talking about the German spirit, I feel there's a lot of healing going on there too.
Yeah. Yeah, and us for America too. Yeah, and it's cool to hear about Romania too.
Yeah, and I would like to thank also the collective of politics for imposing these strict rules during COVID-19 so we can remain safe, and that's something I really appreciate.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, thank you everybody and everyone who joined us in the comments. And yeah, we will see you later for like next Sunday's sermon. And yeah, we hope that, you get a lot from this and that you feel empowered to like make new choices in your heart and just, maybe speak up for what you feel is right in your country, wherever you live. So yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.